Mandaraya Garutmate Shirangeshayatinduna Karunaya Asosya Didiprekshitam Kyatashri Narasam Maharijamanite Padam Bujendindiram Dantikshanti Dayadivishvagunai Bhandam Buddha Gresaram Shrimat Rangashathari Yogi Vipatim Shayonidhim Samshraye Shrimat Srirangapritwishwara Shataripuna Samyamendrena Drishtam Nastatmanam Rusumhe Narahari Shatajit Yogine to Prasadat Pragyam Srirangakari Prabhavayati Patehe Prapta Lakshmi Nrsimhastanam Sevayati Indram Sakala Gunanidhim Viraragvechatarim Shriranganatha Shadagopayati Indra Drishtam Lakshmi Nrsimha Shadajit Karunika Patram Shrirangavira Ragurat Shadagopakrityam Vedanta Deshikayati Indra Maham Prapadhye Shrimatrangashatari Samnamivaral Labdhagaman Tadvayam Shrimadvirarahutvahatyashadajat Padarvindashrayam Shrimadvedavatam Sadeshikayate Karunya Vikshaspadam Seve Rangadurina Shasanavasam Narayanam Yoginam Vedanta Deshikayatindra Katakshalabdha Vayantasara Manavadya Gunam Buddhargryam Narayana Tiyati Turya Kripa Bhishiktam Shri Ranganatha Yati Shekaramashayamaha Shrimate Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Divya Paduka Sevaka Shrivan Charagopa Shri Ranga Charagopa Yatindra Mahadeshikaya Namaha Shrimate Shrivan Charagopa Shri Viragava Yatindra Mahadeshikaya Namaha Shrimate Shrivan Charagopa Shri Vedanta Deshika Yatindra Mahadeshikaya Namaha Shrimate Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Divya Paduka Sevaka Shrivan Charagopa Shri Narayana Yatindra Mahadeshikaya Namaha Shrimate Shrivan Charagopa Shri Ranganatha Yatindra Mahadeshikaya Namaha. Good afternoon, children. So let me ask you a few questions about yajnams. Okay, yajnams mentioned in Vedas. Do you know of any yajnams that you can mention, like 3 or 4?
Putra Kameshti Yagam.
Okay, very good.
Brahma Yajnam.
What is that?
Brahma Yajnam.
I thought somebody would say that.
Ashwamedha Yajnam.
What is that, ma?
Ashwamedha Yagam.
Yes, very nice. So one small thing, Brahma Yajnam is in
Sarpasatra Yajnam.
What is that, ma?
Sarpasatra Yajnam.
I thought you would say that too. Okay, so we have Putra Kameshti, Ashwamedha and Sarpasatra. Let's park the Brahma Yajnam in the parking lot for now. I'll tell you why it's slightly different from what we have.
Rajasuya Yajnam.
Rajasuya, very good. Any more?
Agnihotram.
What is that?
Agnihotram.
Yeah, Agnihotram is a part of Nitya Karmanushtanam also, but I'm talking about other yajnams, like something like, have you heard of Somayagam or Vajpayee Yajnam?
I've heard of Soma Yajnam, but I don't know where.
Yeah.
Putra Kameshti Yajnam.
Yeah, Putra Kameshti has already been mentioned. Rajasuya Yajnam has already been mentioned. Do you know anything about something that Indrajit performed?
The Nikumbala sacrifice.
There you go. Nikumbala, very good. Any more? I'm thinking of 2 more in my head. If you guys can try, I'll tell you. I'll let you know. So one is Poundarikam. Poundarikam is one kind of yajnam, and the other one is also called Garuda Chainam. All of these are very descriptively mentioned in the Yajurveda Brahmanam, as well as in the Yajurveda Samhita Bhagam for the mantras. Can anybody say who performed Rajasuya Yajnam?
Yudhishthira.
Yudhishthira.
And who performed Ashwamedha Yajnam?
Rama and
Rama.
Many kings, right? Rama performed Ashwamedha. Yeah, many people.
Rama, Brahma.
Yes. And which Perumal came from Ashwamedha Yajnam?
I think it's Kanchipuram.
Yes.
Varadaraja Perumal.
Varadaraja.
That's right.
Varadaraja.
Brahmarabdashwamedakya Mahamaka Sapujitaha is one of the slokams towards Varadaraja Perumal. So Brahma made Ashwamedha Yajnam, and Varadaraja Perumal came out of that. And also in Varadaraja Panchashat, Swami Deshikan says, Kintuami Varada Hayameda Yajwa. So Hayameda Yajwa means, Haya means horse, Medam is Ashwamedam, the Yajnam. and Varadarajan came out of the Ayamedi Yajnam performed by Brahma. Okay, and Putra Kameshti, we all know it's too simple. Who made Putra Kameshti? Suparna, you know?
Dasharatha.
Dasharatha made.
Did it to get Rama.
Yes, and Putra Kameshti, and then obviously we know Nikumbala Yajnam was performed by Indrajit in order to defeat Rama and Lakshmana, but it wasn't possible because Lakshmana and Hanuman were successful in interrupting their yajna. Okay, and Sarpa Satra Yajnam, who performed that?
Jayamejan.
For what purpose?
Since the snakes killed his father, he wanted to get rid of them.
He wanted to get rid of all the snakes.
So who was Janamedi's father?
Parikshit.
And was Janamedian successful in wiping out the whole serpent race?
No.
No.
No, he wasn't.
How so?
He also came and then he asked for the whole Mahabharatam, and then he realized what happened.
No, there was another rishi that came in. His name was Astika. Astika came and helped mediate between Janamedian, and Vedavyasa also came in and narrated Mahabharatam and realized everything that happened, and he stopped. Right before Daksha was being dragged down to be put into the sacrifice from Indra's throne. Yeah, I know Shriman and Aparajitan mentioned the story in one of my previous classes. So, so what connection does this have to the story that I'm going to? So the story that I'm going to say is the story of a 5-year-old boy called Nachiketa. Has anybody heard about Nachiketa?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Nachiketa was the son of a rishi called Vajasravas. Okay, so this is a story from multiple locations in Vedas.
Oh,
So, what is
this? I know this one. I think I heard of the story now.
Yeah, I'll come to you and you can give me a summary of the story. But let me give you a little more background, set it up, so you guys can enjoy the story as much as its contents. And then I'll definitely give you a choice, give you a chance to narrate the story if you know already. Okay, so this story occurs in Rig Veda, where it is noted as a conversation between the king of death, Yama, and a boy called Nachiketa. So that is the segment of the story that's captured in Rig Vedam. And in Yajurvedam, in the Brahmanam, there is a prashnam called Kataka Prashnam. In Kataka Prashnam, this story occurs in terms of, from the background onwards, it is narrated very clearly on what happens and how Nachiketa ends up conversing with Yama. And then it is also mentioned in a place called Kathopanishad. Okay, Kathopanishad also has the Nachiketa Upakyanam. So it occurs in 3 places in the Vedas. And between these 3 places, the data points are split. So we will bring all the data points together to make a whole story. And then don't think this is story from the Vedas which has very deep philosophy or anything like that. So the speciality about Vedas that narrate stories is it is a very simple story. But the kind of deep philosophy that the story brings about is mind-boggling. That is a speciality of Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism, and also about the stories in Vedas is that they use narratives in order to bring out the most complicated aspects of life that people otherwise cannot even think of understanding. And the second thing I wanted to mention is last class we saw Artha Panchakam, which was handled pretty easily by Saumi, Vedant, and Harshini, right? Those kids handled Artha Panchakam so well. So there is no limit of age in understanding the philosophies. So you guys have given me a lot more confidence to go into a lot of deeper philosophical aspects of Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, and Vedas, and Sri Vaishnavism and teaching of our acharyas. Okay, so this involves a boy called Nachiketa, who is the son of Vajasravas, and the Vedic text from Katakam goes like Ushanagavai Vajasravas sarva veda sandadho tasya Nachiketa nama putra asam, meaning Vajasravas was performing a yajnam called Sarva Dakshina, meaning he was supposed to give away anything and everything he had, the best of anything and everything he had. Remember, the best of anything and everything he had. Okay? And Nachiketa was a very, very, very nice boy that Vajashravas had. So, Shriman, can you say a few points from here about what you know about the Nachiketa story?
Yeah. All I know is that and his father didn't. He gave like a cow that like it was the cow wasn't fed good things. The cow like it didn't look good
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Okay.
And then
I know from
and
Nachiketa.
Okay, so let me pick up from there. So it was supposed to be an offering called Sarva Dakshina. You have to give away the best of whatever you have, and obviously Vajasravas was giving away the kind of cows that were, that probably had their last meal, or probably that's blind, or they are dried up of milk, or those cows that will not necessarily be of any use even if you had them. So those kind of cows were being donated, or were being given out as dhanam. And this was disturbing Nachiketa very much, because Nachiketa was a very, very pious, nice, straightforward, steadfast champion. He was a very nice kid, like one of you guys, right? And then what happened? He suddenly stepped up towards his dad and he said, "Oh, father, you're supposed to give the best of what you have. I'm your best son. When are you going to give me out as Dhanam? Or who are you going to give me out for Dhanam?" Vajashravas was like disturbed by this question. It's like, what? Me giving you as Dhanam? He was like, thinking that Nachiketas was not making sense, and he kept quiet. Like, let it go. Let it go, little kid. Let it go. Nachiketas did not hold back. He goes back again. Like, oh, father, who are you going to give me away to? His father is like a little more irritated, but he's like, you know what? Let him go. Shh, go, 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 go. Nachiketas is not going to back down. He goes back. Father, who are you going to give me away to? This time, Vajasravas is really mad. He's really mad at Nachiketas. And the equivalent of something like, you would say, go to hell, right? Something like equivalent of that. He says, who are you going to give away to? Who am I going to give away to you to? I'm going to give away to the king of death. That's how I'm going to give away. And then Nachiketas, because he doesn't want to, go away from what his father was saying, he's like, okay, I'm going to go to Yamaloka, or the king of death's Yamapuri, right? And Vajashrava says, no, 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 no. That's not what I meant. I was angry with you, so I just said it. So please don't go. Nachiketa said, no, 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 no. You are doing a yajnam, and whatever is said in between a yajnam has to be completed. So I am going to Yamaloka. And he goes to Yamaloka, right? This 5-year-old boy is now going to Yamalokam, and all of a sudden he hears an Ashariri Vakyam, right? And that Ashariri Vakyam says, oh, my dear Nachiketa, you are such a pious person. You pointed out your father's fault. So when you go to Yamalokam, if you don't find Yama in the Yamapuri, or the king of death in the Yamapuri, stay there for 3 days. Do not eat or drink anything. And when Yama comes by and he asks you what you had, you say, for the first day you had his pashus, or his prajas, or his subjects. The second day, if he asks you what you had, you tell him you had his pashus, or his domestic animals. And the third day, if he asks you what you had, you tell him that you had his dharma karmas, right? And Ashariri goes away. So now Nachiketas walks slowly to the king of death's palace, and he knocks on the door. He knocks on the door, nobody opens up like he expected. And he waits outside for 3 days. No food, no water, no rest, no sleep, no nothing. Right? So now, after 3 days, the king of death shows up. He looks at this brilliant, shining Vedic brahmachari sitting outside his palace without mamam, or without food. So he's terribly upset. He asks, like, who are you? What's going on? He's like, I am Nachiketas. and my father sent me here, and it's been 3 days I've been waiting for you. 3 days? What? What did you have? Did you have anything to eat, or did you sleep? Or he says, no, nothing. I held a fast for 3 days. No food, no sleep, no nothing. And Yamadharma is completely super upset. And the greatness of big people. Yamadharma is the king of dharma, right? He never wavers from dharma. He always does his job, right time, right place, the right person, right? So Yamadharma is extremely upset, and he says he offers all sorts of upacharams to him. But still, Yamadharma is not satisfied, because look at this 5-year-old little sweet boy. He's a champion. He's sitting in front of the palace with no food, and he's had a fast. And Yamadharma says, oh, my dear boy, please forgive me that you have not been taken care of for the past 3 days. And if I give you 3 boons, will that be some sort of a compromise in order to make you feel better? And say, go ahead and ask for the 3 boons, is what the king of death says. And Nachiketa is a very, very smart kid. He's very smart like you guys, right? So what he does, the first thing is, he's a very practical person, right? He knows what's going on. He's realized what he did. He realized what his dad did. And now he has 3 boons from none other than the king of death, Yamadharma himself. So he says, you know what? I don't want to die. So send me back. And when you send me back, my dad shouldn't be upset with me. He should have forgotten all this. And I don't want him waiting with a cane outside the house telling me, so now you went to the Lord of Death to complain about me, huh? And then you get no vacations, no toys, no, nothing to celebrate. You just have to sit and do hard work all day. I don't want that situation. So King of Death, can you please sort that situation out for me? He says, and then Yama smiles and he understands what's going on. And he says, okay. I can take care of that. Don't worry. Done. Consider it done. Tell me the next boon you want. And now he progresses to the next level. And he asks, can you teach me the tricks of these yajnas? My father and all the rishis and the seers are all performing yajnas all the time. So what's the deal with these yajnas? What is the deal about Agni? What is the deal about sacrifices? So that's why I asked you all those questions about yajnas. There is sayings in the Vedas and the Vedic scripture says that when you do those elaborate procedures of yajnas, as Ashwamedha Yajna or Satra Yajna or Vajapeya or Somayaga, all of those are doing those yajnas, propitiating the gods, then you get a lot of punyam and you get time to spend in Swargalok for thousands of years. So Yamadharma says, okay, I will teach you everything about Agni and everything about yajna, and I also tell you the tricks and techniques of how to make them, because those procedures are very elaborate, and you have to make the size of the altar the right size, and you have to offer the right offerings, and you have to say the mantras in the right way with no swara lopam, mantra lopam, tantra lopam, kriya lopam, shraddha lopam, with no reduction in shraddha or procedures. You have to follow up to the T very perfectly. And then when you do that, then you get a lot of punyam, and you get time to spend in the Swargalokam for thousands of years, right? And Nachiketa says, fine. And Yamadharma says, you know what? I'm going to name a yajna after you, Mr. Nachiketa, because you're such a nice boy. You obeyed your father's words. And he says that, and he teaches everything about yajnam and Agni. I want to give you a small feature about Agni at this point. Agni is one of the most important gods. Can anybody tell me why?
It's part of the Panchabhutanga.
Okay. Next.
Because I think
So what are the
I've heard that
Aparajitan, can you say?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
I said, what are the Panchabhutams?
Akasham,
Mhm.
and then Vayu,
Mhm.
Agni, water, and then Prithvi.
Wonderful.
It says it in Taittiriya Upanishad.
Right.
Or-
Prithivyapas tejo vayurakasham. That's how it is generally mentioned. Prithvi is earth, apaha is water, Tejas is the heat, Vayu is the air, Akasham is the sky or space, right? Prithivyapastejo, Vayu, Akasham, Panchabhutam, and Agni is obviously one of them, which is represented as Tejas, but it's Agni, it's what it is. One of the Panchabhutams. Any more reasons why Agni is so special?
Because Agni is the one who sends the message that we did the yajna.
Is that Shrimayi that said it?
Yes.
Wonderful, Shrimayi. You're the best.
He also
Agni takes all the sacrifices from the people. So
Yes. So it is called, the Vedic verse that goes along with it is referred as Agnimukha Yeva Devata Prinati, meaning all the devas, the food for the devas that is offered in the Agni as a part of the Yajnam is carried by Agni and is delivered to that requisite particular devas. So when you say Indraya Swaha, Indraya Idannamama, that Ahuti that went into Agni is being transferred, is being taken by Agni, and it is being delivered to Indra. So that activity of taking the Havir Bhagam from you and delivering it to the Devata is done by Agni. So it is symbolically mentioned as Agni is like a postman. You send the message and you send the Ahuti, and it is taken by Agni and it is delivered to that particular Deva. So Agni is very, very important, and Agni is also referred to as Jata Veda. Okay, so what it means is Jatani Sarvani Vekta iti Jata Veda, meaning whatever has a birth, Agni knows the nature of that thing that has a birth. Meaning Agni can burn anything that has a birth. Jatani Sarvani Vekta. Okay, so Agni is supposed to be very, very, very special for these various reasons, and and Yamadharma, or the king of death himself, teaches Nachiketa about the yajna and about Agni and about the techniques in great detail. Okay, and now Nachiketa and now Yamadharma, the king of death, says, "Okay, you are a smart boy. You asked me two boons. Time for the third one." Right? Nachiketa says, all you said is fine. Okay. You tell me that these yajnas can be done, and that person that performs it perfectly is going to spend thousands of years in Swargaloka. But that's just thousands of years. It's not a lot. Compared to the timeline of how long the earth has existed, thousands of years is nothing. Right? So how do I, now comes the grand question, or the grand prize. The smart champion, Nachiketa, is going to ask the king of death. He goes, "Oh, king of death, tell me the secret of immortality. Not 1,000 years, not thousands of years, but the secret of immortality." He doesn't mean like being immortal, like, like the way we are, you and we are, but in a more elevated sense of going to Parimal or being with Parimal and things like that. So he says, "Tell me the secret of that. I want to know." And Yamadharma smiles and he says, "Oh, my dear Nachiketa, I underestimated you, thinking you are such a small boy. But this question is a Brahma Rahasya, meaning even gods are not allowed to know what's working after the body is left behind. What happens to that Atman? Even gods don't know. How come you even envisioned that and asked that question? You are a tiny little sweet champion, so you have a lot of life in front of you to live. So why do you want to know about this? Let me give you some, gold. Let me give you some nice chariots, or to make it into your parlance, like, let me give you like a few Lamborghini cars, or like a few private jets, with Nintendo Wii, which is the latest version, whatever you want. Very nice, jalebis or food that you have to eat that is offered to Perumal. So I'll give you anything you want. I'll make you the king of the earth for 1,000 years. Okay? Why don't you take that? Okay? Leave this Brahma Rahasya business, this immortality business. This is too heavy for a little boy like you. Guess what Nachiketa says? He's not distracted. He's one steadfast chap. He says, "You have all the jalebis yourself. Okay? Lamborghinis, you drive them. I don't care. Go away with your private jets. I need the answer for this right now. This is my third boon, and this is what I want. And Yamadharma says, the king of death himself says, I'm really impressed by your steadfastness, Nachiketas. This needs a special teacher to teach, and this needs a special student to learn. Who would you ask better than the king of death himself about what happens after death? And then who would ask other than a person like you, Nachiketas, that is so steadfast in wanting to know what you want to know, and also had the goodness to obey his father, and also his intellect to go to the Sashvatam, or the more elaborate, ever-existing being of being in moksha, right? So this you have to understand. Take a step back, okay? Now take a step back from the story and just enjoy how Vedas are portraying. Okay, the Upanishads is not a beginning yet. This is just the background, right? These are mentioned in Vedas, like in Katakam and other places. These backgrounds are mentioned. So just take a step back and see how Vedam is kind of infusing with a very simple story. I would say when you listen to the story, don't get caught in the trivialities. Okay, don't ask me. It's like, well, is it easy to go to Yamalokam right away? Is he like right out of exit 23 corner waiting just so you know his address and you can go there? That's not the point. Okay, the point here is to get to the narrative, to the philosophy behind what he's trying to say. Okay, back in the day, the rishis, the seers and sages had the power to transcend to different lokams. Okay, so I would say don't let your mind wander and get stuck on trivialities, and don't lose the big picture, right? So what happens, just to do a small recap, Nachiketas asked his father who he was going to give him away to, and his father said to the king of death, Mrityave etwadadamiti, he says, and then he goes, and then he's guided by the Ashariri Vakyam, and he waits outside Yamadharma's palace, or the king of death's palace, for 3 days. Yamadharma swings by and he asks, what did you eat for the first day? He says, Prajan the iti, meaning I ate your subjects the first day. What did you eat for the second day? Pashum the iti, meaning the domestic animals. And third day, what did you eat? He says, Sadhukrityam the iti, all of your dharma and sadhukrityam that you did is what I had. And Yama is shaken by this. The king of death himself is shaken by this, and he apologizes right away, right? That's the greatness of people that follow dharma, is the moment they realize that they did something wrong or something is out of place, they do not hesitate to apologize even for a single second, right? Yamadharma, or the king of death, could have scared the little boy away. He could have done magic. He could have done many different things. But the first thing he did was to apologize. And that's a very important thing to understand. If you ever realize that you made a mistake, you have to apologize right away, okay? Because making mistakes is common. You just make sure that you don't repeat the mistake again, okay? But making mistake itself is nothing new. Everybody does it. So the king of death had that virtue in him to do it. So that's a point to follow also. So now he comes and gives 3 boons. The first boon is to sort it out with his father. Second boon is to know about the yajnas and sacrifices. And the third boon, that's the major part of the Kathopanishad, is about the secret of immortality, or about Atman and Paramatman. Okay, so Vedam easily makes the story pass through and gets you to the practical stage of, mother is angry, father is angry, that part, and they come over to the sacrifices part, where he says, if you do this, you get that, and this is how you do this. These are the anushtanams. These are the procedures to follow. And then the next step, it automatically guides you and says, there is something beyond this. There is something beyond the mundane activities. There is something beyond the yajnams, which is called moksha, or which is about the Atman and Paramatman. So it's taking you slowly from one stage to the other through the boons that are being asked by Nachiketa. Okay, so now Yamadharma starts speaking. The king of death himself starts speaking. Oh, my dear boy, Nachiketa, listen, I'm going to teach you. So he says, very easily, he uses a metaphor of a chariot. Okay, he takes a chariot And what comprises a chariot? You guys might have seen in cartoons. What does a chariot have? Can anybody say?
Yeah, wheels. The shafts.
Yes, Srimai?
It has wheels and it has a wheels and a chair and something
What
like
does
a
it have? Does
horse
it have an
pulls it.
engine or a battery that runs it?
It also
No,
has
a horse or something pulls it. A
Yeah.
horse or something
What
pulls
pulls it? What pulls it?
the
Generally-
horses.
Horses. You go. There you go. So horses pulls it. How is the horses tied to the chariot?
It's like with the rope that attaches the horse's back to the
Wonderful.
and the
Wonderful.
horse's neck.
Yeah,
to
the horses has something securing
Yeah.
its face, and then the reins are tied back all the way to the person that's riding the chariot, and the chariot is like a a place where somebody sits inside, and it takes a person from point A to point B, or if it's a soldier, then it's used for fighting, and all of that purposes you have seen, right? So the king of death uses the example of a chariot to describe the Atman. Okay. So I know you guys are very smart and you guys dealt with Artha Panchakam very, very easily. So this is even more simple. It might look like extremely hard philosophical details, but the way Vedams explain it is very easy. Like Nachiketa is a 5-year-old boy. So was Prahalad, was a very old, very small boy, right? And so was Kapila. In Srimad Bhagavatam, if you attend the SAM SV class, you know about the Kapila Avataram story, where Kapila was just 5 years old when he explained to his mom about Atman, Paramatman, and Moksha, right? So age is not a barrier. So don't be taken aback thinking that this is something very exotic that you would never understand. It's very simple, very simple. That's the greatness of our Sampradayam, particularly those stories from Vedas. They entwine the concepts so very nicely that it's very easy to understand. And the biggest part is it's very easy to put it in action. It's not just listening to the story and forgetting about it after you turn the computer off. No, it mixes with you at a so deeper level that it actually gives you points of action to be able to do in a practical way. Okay. So getting into the story, he says it's like a chariot, and the horses that pull the chariot are like our senses, right? The sense of touch, the sense of looking, smelling, eating, tasting, and all of that. Those senses, they pull the chariot in different directions, like the horses pull those chariots. And then you have the reins, the rope that connects the horse to the chariot. That is your mind. That is the next subtle level from this body. Beneath, you have the mind. The mind tells you, the mind kind of controls those senses in a certain way to take you to a certain place. And then if you don't control those senses, then it goes away. Like if you're thinking right now, it's like it's been 40 minutes, I'm just sitting, it's my snack time. Why is this person keeping on going on? I'm hungry, I need to have something. That's giving in to your senses, right? But the mind says, oh, there's something important, it's a very interesting story. Let me just listen to it before I go back. I can always go back and have my snack in a bit. That's not a problem. So that is the control of the mind that comes in over your senses. And then behind that is the buddhi. Buddhi is where you have the vivekam to discern between what is good and what is not good. The thing that the animals don't have, right? That you can differentiate between good and bad. That if you're angry, that you should not do certain things. You should not do anything when you're angry, particularly. So that buddhi, right? That is the chariot rider. That's running the chariot. And the person that is sitting inside the chariot is the Atman, or the soul that's inside the body. So what it clearly says is, don't be thinking that this body that you have, don't be thinking that this is all what it is. There are subtle layers beneath it that goes all the way down to the Jivatma. Like when you look at the chariot, it's not just the chariot. There is a person that's driving it, and there is a person that is riding the chariot who is also inside. So see how nicely he clears out the examples of the senses, the mind, the buddhi, and the Jivatma that is inside, right? Once he talks about the Jivatma, he says that is the Paramatma. So if you think about a number scale, right? Number scale, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then on the left side, you have -1, -2, -3, -4 on the number scale. So if you think about it, infinity is one end of that number scale, right? Or positive infinity is one end of the number scale, and the negative infinity is the other end of the number scale. So positive infinity or the Parabrahman or the Paramatma is the positive infinity part, and the infinitesimal part, which is the smallest of the smallest of the smallest part, is on the other side of the number line, which is inside us as Jivatma. So you have to realize that this body is not what it is. There is a soul inside, and when you realize that, the King of Death says, when you realize that there is one Jivatma and there is one Paramatma, that's when you get out of the cycle of birth and death. As in, he says, from the Vedantam or from the explanation, it goes like, when you know there is a Jivatma and there is a Paramatma, obviously there are many ways that you can adopt, like the Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. And then because of the futility of all of those in terms of completing them properly, Swami Ramanuja, Bhagavad Ramanuja said, Sharanagati is the best way. That takes the Jivatma to the Paramatma. So once you know that there is Jivatma, there is activities that you can do, that you can go to an Acharyan and you can perform Sharanagati and you can go to Parimal after the Jivatma goes to, leaves this body. So let me step back 1 second again, okay? Not to make this too heavy. Of the Aru Vartegal, there is one of the Aru Varte that relates to this very closely. Whoever says this, I will truly accept them to be a champion. You all know the Aru Vartegal, right? I will make it very simple. Okay. What are the Aru Vartegals? Can anybody start me?
The Aru Vartegal is the first one is do Sharanagati to Perumal, and then second one is be Periyanambi's Sisyan.
Yeah, that's probably the last one, but that's good.
Yeah, that's the last one, and then learn the all the like Divya Prabandham
No,
and
let me start you up a little bit. Jivatma, Paramatma, Bedam. Right?
Yeah, the Jivatma
Prapati or Sharanagati is the Tanjai, is the way you have to do it.
The Jivatma and Paramatma are totally two different things.
Right.
Third,
Prapati Pandavalaka Antima Smriti Kadayadu.
You don't have to think about Perumal at the end. But,
yes. And what is the next one? That is the real crux of what I was going to say. Dehavasane Moksham. Like when this body is left behind, the Jivatma goes to, Paramatma. And then there are detailed steps of how that happens, which is little out of scope for us. But that part, right, is really what the King of Death or Yama is trying to teach Nachiketas here and say, you have to realize that the Jivatma goes, it's not the body. So don't be fooled from the outside looking that it's the body, right? Like the chariot has horses, reins, and the person that rides it and an observer inside, this body also has those several subtle layers. And you have to realize that there is a Jivatma. And then once you know there is Jivatma, then you have very, very, very particular steps. Like Swami Ramanuja had mentioned in Aru Vartegal, and all through the Ramanuja Darshanam and Sampradayam, you have how to go to an Acharyan, how to get Panchasamskaram, and how to get Sharanagati, to surrender to Perumal. So, the later stages of life, after the body is left behind, is directly going to Perumal. So that's what he says. And at this point, he wants to also talk about the Jivatma and Paramatma. He wants to bring the attention to say that realizing this will actually make you take action towards going to moksha, right? So he wants to actually underline on the moksham part and say, first realize that there is a Jivatma. Don't think it's just this body, because there is something inside, and that Jivatma is actually needing to go to moksham. And that's how you can actually transcend the cycle of life and death. And people that don't realize this come into my clutch, is what the King of Death says. They keep getting birth, they keep going out, they keep coming back, they keep going out, they keep coming back. And then that's when they stay in my clutch. If you want the secret of immortality, it is moksham. And in order to go to moksham, you have to realize that there is a Jivatma and Paramatma, and then go to an Acharyan and do what needs to be done in order to go to the ways you have to take, like Sharanagati, to go to moksha. That is what he says. And look at how steadily he progresses from his father not being upset. He goes to the yajnas, and he goes to the ultimate truth of Sanatana Dharma or Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam, which is moksha, right? So treat the story as it is. Don't get stuck into realities on one way or the other, and then transcending the circle of life and death is really what the king of death is trying to explain to Nachiketa. And so this is such, technically speaking, this is a heavy concept, but I think the way the king of death put it, he made it really sound simple to a person of the age of Nachiketa, is around 5 years. So I'm sure it's not too heavy for you guys either. So can anybody summarize what just happened in terms of the moral of the
I
story?
can summarize.
What is that, Ma?
I can tell the moral.
Yeah. No, hold on. First, tell me the morals that you gained from the story, then we'll summarize.
Okay. The first moral is when you're doing a yajna, you have to like you have to like
Give the
give
best.
your best. You have
Yes.
to give it your best.
Okay. Anybody else want to try next one? What's the other moral? Vedant, Saumi, Srimai, Goda.
You have to be determined on what you want and don't get distracted, like what Yama tried to do.
Fantabulous. Very good. Any more? There are many more morals.
You need to control your senses.
Right. Hold on. Let's give other kids a choice or chance to say. Stavya, Samrit, you guys normally are very good. Go ahead. Joshna, Keshav, Raghav, Vishnu. So first, on a lighter note, you should not ask wrong questions at the wrong time. Okay, because he kept asking and irritating Vajashravas. Vajashravas says, I give you away to the king of death. So you have to, even if you know if elders are doing something that you don't understand or they are doing literally something wrong, you have to wait, be patient, and then try to approach them when the time is right and try to mention what you thought and get clarity over it, even if what you observe is wrong. You have to definitely communicate, but you have to do it at the right time. Okay. And anymore, I had 3 gem of points, which says, steadfast, control your senses. Anymore?
I have
another
moral.
Apologize if you realize that you made a mistake. That is the first sign of being a great person.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that.
You was about to say? Who was about to say?
It doesn't matter what.
Apologize after you make a mistake.
Yes, Vedant, you're right. So, the king of death is really a very powerful position, So he didn't care he didn't blink an eyelid, bat an eyelid for 1 second when he realized that Nachiketa was waiting outside without food or water for 3 days. He apologized immediately. So that's a great virtue to adopt, is to apologize if you realize you made a mistake, right? Next one.
Can I say one?
Yes, Raman, go ahead. I think you are a little far away from the mic, Kanna. I can't hear you, Ma.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So you should never think that that your like body on earth, that's the only thing. You should recognize that you have a Jivatma inside of you and that there's a Paramatma.
Right. Wonderful. Great point. So I'll just rephrase it in a little bit. You just said the core. I'll just rephrase it. So you have to look for Sashvatam, or always eternal happiness, in terms of, moksham or stuff like that. Don't be distracted by the easy stuff, the easy pleasures that will drain the energy and make you do things that you generally didn't want to do. So those kind of things definitely need to be done, for sure, for your daily day-to-day needs. But you should also realize that there is an underlying philosophy of Paramatma and Jivatma. You have to take the steps in order to attain moksham at the right time. Okay, at the right time, no hurry. But then, any more?
Never do the same mistake twice or more.
Right? Very good. Any more?
Don't disturb somebody while they're doing a yajna.
Right? Very good. Suparna, do you know anything? Can you help me?
Mama,
Yes.
I'd like to tell a moral.
Yes.
Always
Can you
persist.
turn your video on? I'm not sure who's talking.
Prakriti.
Oh, Prakriti, go ahead, Kanama.
Always persist when you want something
Very
and
good.
succumb to temptation.
Yes, that's perfect. Very nice. Very nice, Prakriti. Don't succumb to temptation. The king of death was trying to say, I'll give you jewels, this and that, chariot, food. No, 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 no. He was steadfast on what he wanted. So it was very, very nice of the little boy Nachiketa. Okay. And then one more thing I want to add is age is not a barrier. You don't have to be a certain age in order to understand the deep philosophies of our Sanatana Dharma or Sri Vaishnavism, right? So he was just a little boy. He still had the hunger and the appetite for the secret of immortality, which was a Brahma Rahasyam. But he still was steadfast and he was able to get it. And also, the last one I want to summarize with is the difference or the importance of Vivekam and Vairagya, right? We are gifted, we are not like animals. We have the Vivekam to discern between the good and the bad. So we have to realize that we have and put that to real good use. Okay. And that's one of that. And also the Vairagyam, which is the steadfastness and not giving in into the teasing, pleasurable little bitty things. Instead, working hard, working strong, and going in the path of Dharma and always doing the right thing, even though it is tough, is actually the Vairagyam part. So the following of Vivekam and Vairagyam is another very important takeaway that we also take from this. Okay, so can anybody summarize the three boons that Nachiketa asked?
One boon is that his dad shouldn't be upset when he goes back. And another one is to learn why we do Vedas, yagas.
Yes.
And what are the steps and elaborate procedures of doing the yagas?
And one of them was how to become not immortal.
Like, what are the secrets?
Always be with
And what are the secrets to be immortal?
What are the secrets to immortality?
The secret of Parama Purushartha.
immortality.
Parama Purushartham. Very nice. Very nice. That's very well put, Prajitan. Any more? Very nice. The secret of Parama Purushartham.
How to do yagyams and how and why we do them.
Okay, very nice. And then what metaphor does he use? What metaphor does he use to explain the
Of a chariot.
A chariot.
Yes, can somebody summarize that? There's somebody that has not spoken up. Somebody, Keshav, Dev Shashank, or I want to just give somebody else an option to see if they can say it's like Kannan, Lakshmi Narasimhan.
He used a chariot as a metaphor.
Yes. That's okay. Yeah, one thing I'll tell you is don't be shy or don't hold back. If you want to say something, if it's wrong, that's fine. Nobody is going to say anything. You're trying, and that in itself is a great thing. So feel free to say whatever you want to say. That's totally fine. Even if you are marginally off, we'll help you, and you can definitely make it through. So feel free. All right. So go ahead, Sriman or Aparajitan, Srimayi, Raman, Vedant, Saumi, Prakriti. What was the metaphor? Summarize the metaphor for me, please.
He was saying
Your senses are the chariot and your mind is like the horse.
something like
The
that.
rope is not
The
The mind is like the rope. The mind
The
is like the
Your
rope.
senses are the horses, and the mind is like the rein,
And the mind is the rope.
and the buddhi is the rider. Right?
And didn't they,
not the rider, but the charioteer.
yeah, and the person and the rider, the person who's sitting inside is not the charioteer. That's your Jivatma, right?
Yes. So think about, right? Arjuna is different from Lord Krishna, right? In the chariot, Krishna rides the chariot, but Arjuna is sitting inside, right? So think of that analogy if you are confused. Okay, don't use that analogy for something else, because Krishna is Parimal or Paramatma himself. So don't mix that up and confuse it. But the rider is different than the chariot.
Perumal is guiding Arjun.
Was that ma?
Perumal was guiding Arjun.
Yes, that's right. But that's a slightly different story and analogy. Will come on a different day. But apart from this, do you guys have any other questions?
Since the story is in the Vedas, wouldn't it be also in the Nalayana Divya Prabandham, because it's Dravida Veda Sagaram?
Right. So that's a great question. I don't personally know of where it might be referenced. There might be a very passing reference somewhere in the Divya Prabandhams, but I don't know offhand, or I cannot put my finger on a particular Pashuram and say this is exactly where the Pashuram is. But it's quite possible that it might be,
Because
or it might be that the concept has been expressed in a very similar way.
In the Tiruvirattam or and the Tiruvasiram, because they're the Rig Vedam and the Yajurvedam.
Right.
In Dravida
You
Veda.
know more than me, Aparajita, and I'm telling you, I'll honestly admit. So if you know a place where it's mentioned, you tell me and I'll listen to it.
No, I don't know. I was just asking.
Sure. That's fine. You can ask.
I have a question.
Yes, Amma.
When the kid asked Yama about the yajnas, right? What topics did Yama cover?
Like he tells how those yajnas get the, how or I'll tell you, he does not say a particular yajna, say this Vajapayam does this, or it's not a matrix where he says this yajna does this or this yajna does that, but he says the concept of doing things that are good in terms of offering oblations and oblations to the devas in the form of yajna gets you punyam and puts you in a position where you can go to Swargalokam for several thousands of years to experience those punyams. So the concept of how those are done, how an yajna actually fetches you punyam to put you into Swargalokam, is that combination of things and the procedures that are going into performing yajnam, as how perfectly an agni should be prepared, and how those elaborate procedures of how the yajna kundam should be prepared, and who is a brahman, who is an advaryu, and who is a Brihaspati, and who is the yajwa, and who is actually the person that's performing, who is the person that's actually performing, the yajaman that is performing the yajnam, and what are the different forms of sacrifices that are being performed, and what are being offered, and what should not be offered, and how it should be done right, and all of those intricate details were the ones that were covered. It is not in great detail, particularly if you go into the Upanishads, but it says that is what transpired between the child and the king of death.
I have a question.
Yes, Amma.
So the person who was doing the offering, who was he again?
Kana, I can't hear you, Ma, please.
Okay. So when the yajna was being done, why didn't the rishi, the yajna is you're supposed to give the best of what you have. So why did he only offer the cows that were about to die or weren't of use? Didn't he have any other cows?
That's a $1 million question. That's the whole basis of this whole story. He should have given the good cows as a part of the danam, but those were probably the ones he probably had. He probably didn't have any ones that were healthy or strong or milk giving or anything like that. I really don't have a straight answer for that. I should apologize. But what I'd say is he did what he did. Yes, Sri Mahikana. Srimai, go ahead.
Why didn't the devas know about the secrets of immortality?
Because
And
they
why did
are
only
not.
Yama?
Yeah, that great question. Great question, Srimai. Fantastic. If you just go back to the Artha Panchakam topic that Saumi presented last week, she had a slide where it says Nityar, Baddhar, and Muktar. Remember? Nityatma, Baddhatma, and Muktatma. Right? So the Nityatma, which is more like Nitya Samsaris, right? I'm sorry. Baddhatmas. Baddhatmas are the Baddha Jivas that are taking the birth as taking the birth again and again, or reincarnating again and again based on their karmas or the karma palams, right? The devas are also jivatmas that keep reincarnating. The devas might have performed some yajna really well, and they got the position of being in that deva role for a limited period of time. They are not there for eternity. So they are very much like us, okay, that operate under karma being available to them, or as long as their good karmas are going to give them the experiences in the lokams, they will stay in the lokam. Once their karmas are exhausted, guess what happens next? They will be born back here, right? So having said that, those devas are also have not realized, if you think about it, of the Paramatma and the Jivatma and the need for going to moksha. So if they realize the need for going to moksha, they would have taken the step to go to moksha, and they would have eventually reached moksha. They wouldn't be devas. The devas are also some sort of jivatmas that are performing their duties to exhaust the karmams that they have accumulated, or the punyams, or the good deeds they have accumulated by performing yagyam or dhanam or something great that has made them a deva. So their stay as deva is not eternal. It is limited also. So they will be reborn as jivatmas here once their karmas are exhausted. So they are also very much like us. So going back to the slide that Somi had, Nityar, Baddhar, and are not aware of. They are not aware of the jivatma paramatma difference and how to go to moksha. Did that answer your question, Srimai? It was a very nice question.
Yes, but how did Yama know?
Because he is the king of death. He is the one that. That's a very nice question, actually. Yama is a deva himself, right? But he is the Dharma Raja, right? So he knows the rules. Not necessarily that he performed them, but he knows them. So now you are telling me, if Yama knew it, then why is he not gone to moksha? That's a great question, Srimai. That's a great question. Can anybody try to answer that while I think of an answer?
Wouldn't he will only probably know the basic. He won't know the deep meaning. Probably only Perumal and the people that he taught it to, and the people in Vaikuntham.
But think about how smart
I think
made the question.
I think I might know.
What?
Because I think Yama might know it. Like he might know it. Like he might know the information, but just because you know something doesn't mean you practice it, right?
Right. But he says, right, that's one way of putting it. You still have to perform Sharanagati, and then Perumal will have to give moksham. That's when it gets done. And Yama seems to know it, but he probably has not performed Jnana Yogam, Bhakti Yogam, Karma Yogam, or Sharanagati.
I think I have an idea of why.
What is that, man?
I think I have an idea of why he doesn't perform it like.
Go ahead.
So if he attains moksham, then can he still be like the god of death, the king of death, or
not really?
No. So if that's the case, then who will take up the role for him? Because
there are many more jivatmas that can perform that role.
Yeah. Okay then.
No, I think Shriman got the answer. Is that yes, he knows, but he probably did not perform it. He did not do Bhakti Yogam, which comprises of karma and jnana yogam inside of it, or he did not perform Sharanagati through an Acharyan to Perumal, but he knows that that's the way. Maybe he'll come around at the end of his tenure, that he realizes that his tenure is over, and then he'll perform that Sharanagati and then go to Perumal. That's a great question, Srimayi. Very nice.
I have a question. So when you said that devas will be born as jivatmas, right? Will they be born as the like not like human beings, or will they be born as a like a lower status? Because they were devas, and they mostly did.
When they are performing their role as devas, right? They are exhausting their karma, and while they are exhausting their karma,
they are also performing karma, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't
based
that
on the weightage of that karma is what they will end up being.
They will be born as. So, but when they're performing karma, won't they be always doing good karma, so they would get a higher status?
See, that's really what Nachiketa is saying. It's a trap that you get into pleasure. Performing good karma is a trap. Like when you perform good karma, and when you are, say for example, you are eating ice cream. So if you forget to brush your teeth after eating ice cream,
that's bad karma.
What is that?
Isn't that bad?
No, I'm just saying, if you forget to brush your teeth after you have ice cream and you go to bed with a mouthful of ice cream, the next day morning or gradually you're going to lose your teeth, right? So it started off by enjoying the ice cream, but it ended up giving you bad teeth. So the act of actually going through the pleasures is not just, doesn't stop right there. It has baggages or strings that might pull people into different ways, and that end result of where that ends up decides where the deva is born. Do you understand? Right. So that's why, because Perumal during moksham, since you ask it, I will say it's a very heavy concept. Again, since you asked it, I'll try to put it out and see if you can digest it. Is the punyam and papam will both have to be zero in order to go to moksha. And Perumal tries to manage that for us. For people that have done Sharanagati, Perumal tries to manage the punyam and papam to be brought to zero. You cannot say, I have no papam, but guess what? I have a little bit of punyam. Then cannot go to moksham, because you still have to enjoy those punyams. And then when you enjoy those punyams, guess what? This papam also goes up. Or you gain more punyam. And you get back into the cycle of reincarnation again. So when you do Sharanagati, Perumal manages, right, the papam and punyam to come to zero, and then he makes sure that the jivatma goes to moksham after he loses the body. So that is actively managed by Perumal towards the last point. Like in Varaha Charama Shlokam, it says, Aham smarami madbhaktam nayami paramam gatim. So he comes right next to the jivatma that is ready to go to Sri Vaikuntham, and he actively manages. And there are different ways Perumal manages. It is going to be very abstract and a little heavy for you guys. But when somebody is, scolding the person that is about to pass, or when a person is, hurting the person that's supposed to pass, all the punyams or the papams are transferred to the person that hurt him, and a person behaves really nice to the person that is going to pass away, then all the punyams are passed over to the people that do good to that person. So there are different rules and regulations, and nobody knows how Perumal operates, because he has all ways and means of rules under his disposition. Once he decides that that particular jivatma is going to moksham, he can actively make sure that papam and punyam are zero. Okay, Kana. So we are 11 minutes over. So if there are any more questions, feel free to email me or message me or email to Vimala Mami, and we'll try to get you an answer. One thing I'm going to say is, go ahead and subscribe for the YouTube channel. Okay, subscribe there, and then it's nice to watch it on YouTube for sure. But you get an opportunity to ask questions if you come live. And the best part is, the questions don't have to be related to the subject we are talking. You can ask question about general Sanatana Dharmam also, if we know, or Sri Vaishnavism, about our Acharyas, about our Sampradayam, about Ahobila Madam, anything. If we know the answer, I'll tell you, or anybody that's teaching will tell you. And if we don't know, we'll go back, we'll find out and provide you an answer. So it's encouraged for you guys to show up in person so you can ask the questions. And this particular way of delivery is done better if there are more people, more fun, and more interaction, right? So your knowledge can feed off of each other and it can grow as a whole. And all of us can benefit from it, including myself. It's not that I'm teaching. I learn a lot personally from teaching to you guys. And thank you all for this opportunity to listening to the story with all of you. If that's pretty much the end of it, then I'll chant Acharya Tanyan and I will wrap up for today. Sounds good? Okay. Shrirange Shayatinduna Karunaya Sosyaditi Prekshitam Kyatashri Narsammaharjamunet Padambujaindindiram Dhantikshanta Deyadibishvagunair Bhandam Budhagresaram Shrimatrangashatar Yogin Rapatim Shayo Nidhim Samshraye Shrimat Shriranga Pratveshwara Shataripuna Samyamendrena Drishtam Nasthatmanam Brusumhe Narahari Shatajit Yogine Toprasadat Pragyam Shrirangakari Prabhavayati Patehe Praptalakshmi Nృసింహాస్థానం సేవే యతీంద్రం సకల గుణనిధిం వీరరగ్వేట్ షటారిం శ్రీరంగనాథ షడగోప యతీంద్ర దృష్టం లక్ష్మీ నృసింహ షడజిత్ కరుణైకపాత్రం శ్రీరంగ వీర రఘురాట్ షడగోపకృత్యం వేదాంత దేశిక యతీంద్రమహం ప్రపద్యే శ్రీమత్తంగ షటారి సంయమివరాల్లబ్ధాకమాంతద్వయం శ్రీమద్వీర రహుత్వహత్తి షడజిత్ పాదారవిందాశ్రయం శ్రీమద్వేదవదంస దేశిక యతేః కారుణ్యవేక్షాస్పదం సేవే రంగధురీణ శాసనవసం నారాయణం యోగినం వేదాంత దేశిక యతీంద్ర కటాక్షలబ్ధ దయ్యందసారమనవద్య గుణంబుదాగ్రం నారాయణాత్యతితుర్య కృపాభిషిక్తం శ్రీరంగనాథ యతిశేఖరమాశ్రయామః శ్రీమతే శ్రీలక్ష్మీన సమదీవపాదుకా సేవక శ్రీవంశటగోప శ్రీరంగ షడగోప యతీంద్ర మహాదేశికాయ నమః శ్రీమతే శ్రీవంశటగోప శ్రీ వీరరాఘు యతీంద్ర మహాదేశికాయ నమః శ్రీమతే శ్రీవంశటగోప శ్రీ వేదాంత దేశిక యతీంద్ర మహాదేశికాయ నమః శ్రీమతే శ్రీ లక్ష్మీన సమదీవపాదుకా సేవక శ్రీవంశటగోప శ్రీ నారాయణ యతీంద్ర మహాదేశికాయ నమః శ్రీమతే శ్రీవంశటగోప శ్రీ రంగనాథ యతీంద్ర మహాదేశికాయ నమః. Thank you, children. Keshawaya namaha.
Keshavaya
Keshavaya Namaha.
Namaha.